at the football feast. Leader Fan Radio Network.
The stories a stadium could tell.
And KFAN.com. 1 minute and 52 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock, Central Daylight Time. Welcome back, Monday edition, Bumper to Bumper Show. And I think we're going the distance today, 3.5 hour tour on a remarkably balmy. Where are we at? Is it 62 degrees, or it's got to be on my screen? It says 52. Isn't it more? No, 62.
Yeah, mine says 62.
It feels like it's approaching 70 degrees outside.
We are surging right now.
It is remarkable. The tsunami pretty much evaporating right in front of our eyes. Is it possible all of our hopes and dreams when it comes to free agency are also evaporating right in front of our eyes? That will be one of the subjects we explore throughout today's program. Many of you are aware by now that the free agency frenzy has indeed begun. And it's not always about who gets there first. But I wouldn't blame Vikings fans if they are suffering a bit of FOMO early to this point. As far as I know, to this moment, our big move, and is this our only move to this point, is a cornerback.
Yes, Isaiah Rodgers.
Named Isaiah Rodgers, who we get from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a part-timer for the Eagles who was considered kind of a guy on the rise, shall we speak. But we've lost a bunch of people already. That includes, of course, the Sam Darnold dream has officially died, as most of you know by now. The
Bumper to Bumper dream on Mondays.
Cam Bynum dream is died. This would be the 5th consecutive year. Actually, 6 if you include Mike Zimmer, that whoever we had on as the regular Bumper to Bumper weekly guest during the football season was either fired or went to work for another team or retired after their 1 year with us.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's going to start being called the Bumper to Bumper curse, which might well hurt our chances to get somebody as a regular for the upcoming 2025 season.
I think what we need to do is just focus on guys that have multi-year contracts or aren't in the final year of an expiring. That's what we're going to have to start looking at.
Yeah, you might be right.
Maybe we'll have to just beg for J.J. McCarthy at this point.
Are you going to have anything left, by the way? I'm bitter. You just spent the last hour with Common was out today, and Tenna's in, and he's asking you, I mean, I know you feel, you're a team player, you want to help, but then you got nothing left. You've just been pontificating he barely spoke between 2 and 3, and now you're not going to have anything left.
I would say what I just did with Tenna is not any different than what I do on most days. I mean, tomorrow I've got the Ben Johnson radio show. That's noon to 1.
Yeah,
typically I'll have a TV show mixed in somewhere.
Yeah, but not 2 to 3. Not right before us.
You feel like get a little buffer period, a little rest period, get out of the pool, stretch out, and then come back in?
Are we going to let or allow defensive tackle Jonathan Allen out of the building? That's the question. He's allegedly visiting today.
Apparently.
We'll get all those details with bonus Ben Goessling coming up next segment. Darnold is gone. Moon Mullins.
How about that?
Is also gone. He's on his way to Jacksonville.
I thought of you immediately.
Along with Johnny Munt, right?
Oh, is Munt going
Johnny
too?
Munt is going there too. So we lose a tight end. We lose our starting quarterback. We lose our, I guess, technically backup quarterback, depending on how you want to view Daniel Jones.
Who's allegedly picking between us and Indy.
Is that the word on the street?
That's the rumor. That's what's been reported, that he's got a couple of options, the Vikings being one of them. Daniel Jones.
What about the Aaron Rodgers rumor? Has it died coming here?
I haven't seen much. God, I just was rooting for that so hard yesterday. I'd given up on it, and then, that's that Friday night news dump. It was your guy Ian Rappaport and at least one other reporter describing the Vikings as, with the assumption, if you go back to Friday, we got one in a row right. We called that right. When the word breaks that Seattle is trading their starting quarterback, what's his name? Geno Smith.
Geno Smith to the Raiders for number 3. It pretty much meant the Darnold domino is going to fall, and he's going to leave here. Because a team that's willing to give up its starting quarterback has a plan. They're motivated. And the assumption is that with that motivation would come some willingness to spend some money. Which ultimately was a 3-year deal, $100 million in that range?
I think 110 with 58 guaranteed.
58 guaranteed.
Yep.
So that's obviously more money than the Vikings are going to be interested in spending.
It's like the Baker deal, though, that we talked about
with
3 months ago.
Yeah, with inflation. Yeah, you're right. That it is what it is. And now I'm back to why didn't we chise him?
It's true.
Well, but see, I'm going to rip Goessling. I'm going to rip because a lot of the Jackals misled me. Basically, what did we hear for the last week? There's no market.
Soft market.
The market's done. There's no
it's
market.
Dried up.
Well, it's not dried up if he's getting a Baker Mayfield deal, is it? That just doesn't make sense to me. Now, maybe they're the only team, but it only takes one. Anyway, so Rappaport does the old, Darnold's going to leave. Now that's pretty clear. So Vikings might be a dark horse choice for Aaron Rodgers. And I'm going, what? And, my whole premise Sunday was, I think it would be the most self-destructive move in the history of an organization that once traded everything for Herschel Walker. But I'm rooting for it because I'm rooting for the story. Heads would have exploded in this town. But it appears now A-Rod is either going to end up in Pittsburgh or staying in New York with the Giants. Is that correct?
I think those are kind of the two teams that are still looking for somebody to stop off in their town.
Could we have gotten, if A-Rod had come here, could he have been our weekly guest? Probably not. He's used to a lot of money for his
wasn't he getting $1 million from McAfee?
That was what was reported.
Yeah. Which, by the way, people were ripping McAfee for that or ripping the concept of that. I got him a lot of clicks, got him a lot of engagement.
Got him a lot of clicks.
It was the show of record for all things Aaron Rodgers, which, believe it or not, was big business.
How about my club, the Monsters of the Midway?
Ken and I talked about that.
Honest to God.
Exactly right. They are fortifying things.
Again, you could say it's like winning the press conference because not all these moves always work out. And sometimes if you need to make this many moves, it just further underscores how behind you are. But on paper, they have done. Here's what worries me. They have done what I thought we had to do and were going to do. They've already remade the interior of their offensive line.
Correct.
They've traded for 2 guards, and they've acquired via free agency the best center on the market.
And paid him handsomely. I like the intent of the Bears.
They got an extra pass rusher. They got that. Full speed ahead. And by the way, who's the hotshot running back in the draft that some people are absolutely... Is it the Boise State kid?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The rumor is that's who the Bears... Do they have like the 9th pick or 10th pick? They got a bunch of extra ones again. Whatever they have, the word is they might take them. They seemingly did very well. Detroit got the best cornerback on the market. What the hell's his name? Is it Reed?
I think
they got him. The rich get richer there, and we got nothing.
Bears have pick 10.
Pick 10. Okay, that's the rumors. They might use that pick to take a running back.
I like the Bears' intent, however it works out. Because, like you said,
can't argue with
who knows?
How do you ever argue with using your resources to attempt to rebuild and establish your offensive line and defensive line? I mean, you can't. You can never lose. Now, not every decision is necessarily the right decision, but I'm never going to be mad at a team that has figured out the sad and boring truth of this league. It's much more important what you have at the line of scrimmage than any other thing that you do. Is Cousins landing somewhere too? Did I see that, or are there just rumors on him? Has he landed?
He hasn't landed.
So the question is whether he's going to stay.
He's got to be released first,
yes, he has to be released, which Atlanta so far is saying they won't,
right.
But no one knows whether really to believe them.
I don't believe that. I don't know why you would keep him, but no, I haven't seen
good backup.
What's interesting, though, is I'm surprised.
Might he come? Are we back to that rumor? Remember? Because that was the rumor for Rodgers was Cousins back here because it's not, the Vikings would have to pay him like $8.
Especially after we lost Mullins. And what if Daniel Jones goes to Indy? You're going to need a backup somewhere.
Oh, we know who that's going to be.
Who's that?
Guy was with the Saints last year. Jameis.
Yeah, I would like that. That'd be fun.
Perfect.
He could be our Monday regular, even if you didn't play.
You know what? You're right.
He'd be great.
He's a great talker.
He'd probably come in studio.
That's not a bad thought. Let's work ahead on that, just in case. I have no idea.
In the deal. And you get to go on our flagship every Monday at 3:15 to talk about the game, whether you played or not. Come on in, Jameis. I'd love it.
So let's get this straight. For years, we blamed no money to spend on Kirk. Now we have a rookie quarterback, and we still don't spend like the other clubs. Bears and Commanders, for example, with rookie QBs. It's a fair question.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's early.
Let's see what happens. We're 3 hours into this thing.
And again, I think the free agent moves last year came pretty quick for the Vikings, but they weren't names that allegedly moved the needle, but they all worked out pretty well. That said, it's a little bit worrisome because some of the people who've already moved are considered really, really good ball players that would, and in many cases, help this club. And who's the cornerback we're trying to re-sign?
Murphy.
Murphy, with nothing on him yet, right? The concern on Murphy is Murph's going to be, hey, look, I want literally the best deal. So whoever wants to give me the best deal, that's where I'm going to go. And whether the Vikings might have a number, they've decided they're not going to cross that threshold. And because if you lose him, then I think you got a problem. Even with the free agent we have already signed, the cornerback, we should say, Isaiah Rodgers from the Philadelphia Eagles. So, and I tell you what, let's go ahead and stay on schedule. Bonus Ben Goessling time is coming up next. We'll see what he has to say about whether Jonathan Allen will be allowed to leave the building. He's a defensive tackle, correct?
Yeah.
And we need help. He was with Washington for a number of years. They cut him. They tried to trade him. It was a cost-cutting situation because he was going to make $15.5 million this year. So now he renegotiate. He'll get his own deal. I can certainly see why the Vikings would be interested in him. And we know we need help on the offensive line and the defensive line as well. So let's get to Ben, see what he is hearing, specifically and particularly about what the Vikings' pursuit is going to be at the quarterback position. What's the plan now? And then we'll set up the rest of a very busy show that includes an in-studio visit. I'm not making it up. I already saw him in Chad Abbott's office with Luigi. Yeah, Lou Nanny is in the house. He'll join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Oldsmobile guy with an interesting question. Can B-Flow turn I-Raj, not A-Raj, I-Raj, our new cornerback, into the next Revis Island? I'll hang up and listen. Very well played by Oldsmobile guy. Ben Goessling joined us last Friday. He'll join us again this Friday. He's giving us some bonus time today. Under some duress, we appreciate him coming to the phone via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline on a very busy day, the first day of reported, at least, free agency. Mr. Goessling, for you from the Vikings, oh, by the way, this just in, as you probably know, we've lost another player, Patrick Jones, the second, going to Carolina for a 2-year, $20 million deal. Seifert describes this as edge rusher is a relative surplus position for the Vikings. So he seems to be poo-pooing it. Do you agree, or do you think it might be more of a loss than he is suggesting?
No, I would agree with that. I think when you have Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, Dallas Turner in the mix, that was not going to be one that they were going to spend a ton of money on. So not a huge surprise after the start of the year that he had last year that he went and got himself a nice deal, a nice raise. But no, that doesn't seem like one that they would have been terribly interested in fighting for him at that price.
Is it possible that at the end of this musical chairs, the Vikings are going to be left without an available seat at the number 2 and or number 3 quarterback position? We've already lost Darnold. We've lost Nick Mullins. And I guess we're locked in a contract duel, allegedly. You can speak to this if you can confirm it, with the Indianapolis Colts for the services of Daniel Jones. So what could we be left with nobody or having to start over at the quarterback position, at least behind JJ?
Well, yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, the Daniel Jones stuff, yes, that is what I've heard as well, is that they are trying to get him back, but the Colts have a lot of interest in him as well, and it may come down to where he feels like he has a better chance to further his own career, whether that's starting right away or competing for a job in Indianapolis, or whether he feels like coming back to the Vikings in whatever that looks like, if it's competing with McCarthy or, kind of being the emergency option while you're still getting more time around this staff. He would have to decide what he thinks the best thing is for him. But yeah, if Daniel Jones were to leave, Brett Rippon is still here, but I don't think that's going to qualify as what they are wanting as another veteran option. So it may be one of those things where they have to go look for one of the other names on the market. And, I do think they'll at least kick the tires on Aaron Rodgers. What the fit would look like there, I have some questions about. But if they don't get Daniel Jones back, yeah, I think a lot of those veteran options have to become part of the conversation because they do want somebody in that spot in case McCarthy, for whatever reason, just isn't ready to be the guy with no questions asked.
You're trying to get me going. You're doing it. I didn't think you had any shock jock in you. I thought that was Ian Rappaport Friday throwing out that bomb about, well, the Vikings might be a dark horse destination for Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is not going to come here competing for a job, is he? I just don't even see how that would be possible. If the Vikings are entertaining the notion on Rodgers, they have to know he's going to be their starting quarterback. And even then, I think it would be one of the worst decisions perhaps in franchise history, although I'd root for it because it's such a delicious story.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that would be the rub of the whole thing is I don't think he's going to go somewhere and say, well, I'm going to go battle for a job with a effectively rookie quarterback. I mean, a quarterback that's been in the NFL, but a quarterback that hasn't played. I don't think he is going to sign up for that necessarily. So when I talk about the questions about the fit, yeah, I don't know how you would get past that part of it because I think they want to move McCarthy along as fast as he's ready to do it. And every indication they've had so far is a good thing. So I think that would be the tricky part of the whole thing. I do know that he is a fan of Kevin O'Connell. He's a fan of how O'Connell has approached the position. So it would probably at least be a conversation. But yes, there would be a lot of things to figure out if that were even slightly possible of coming to fruition. I'm skeptical it would, but I've heard enough just kind of rumblings of it to at least feel like it's worth addressing.
By the way, a number of people are asking about compensatory picks. That whatever we get, that won't be until the 2026 draft. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. And that's still yet to be calculated, or do we know automatically on what it's going to be with Sam Darnold, or is there a weird, complicated formula that gets us there eventually, but we don't know yet?
Yes, there is a weird, complicated formula. It's the NFL, and they love those. But I think they'll be in good position, at least looking at what we've seen today with Darnold.
Yeah.
Cam Bynum's deal, 4 years, $60 million, I think probably helps in that regard as well. Basically, what happens is you look at contract value and playing time at the end of the year, you put it all into the complicated formula, you net things out, and then if you end up having lost more than you gained in free agency, you get a comp pick according to that formula. So Kirk Cousins will probably get them a third this year. I could see Darnold being the same kind of thing next year. And then maybe, kind of depending on how all of this washes out in terms of what they add and what they lose, they could be in position for another one. I mean, it certainly would help to have more picks this year. But yes, they are so far, if you want to look at the losing free agents as a benefit in the comp pick sort of game, they're off to a good start, I guess, that way.
All right, let's put A-Raj aside for the moment. Let's talk about I-Raj, the cornerback we added from the Eagles, Isaiah Rodgers. What is he at this point? I don't think he was at the top of the list of available corners. On the other hand, he seemed to be like he's on the come with the Eagles. Some people really liked him. So how should Vikings fans evaluate the Vikings coming to terms with Isaiah Rodgers, cornerback?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need help there, and certainly he adds to the depth. I think he will be competing for a role. I mean, I think they will probably look to do some other things at that position. I don't think they're done there. They certainly want to bring Byron Murphy back if it's possible, though the prices on corners are also going to be really high, as we saw with J.C. Horn's deal with the Panthers today. So Rodgers, I think, adds to the group. I think he has shown some ball skills in his past, whether it's interceptions or kind of being in position to recover fumbles and make plays that way. Looked like he was kind of taking a step forward with the Eagles. It's not a sure thing. It's not, the guy that you sit there and say, we know exactly this is our lockdown number one corner, but I think they're betting on upside. It's very much the type of move they've made at this position quite a bit, where they say there's more to get out of this guy. It's a relatively affordable thing. I think it's going to be one of several moves they make at that position, but I think a lot of it is betting on upside and their ability to get more out of him with this coaching staff, which they certainly feel like they can do.
Bonus Ben Goessling giving us a couple of minutes here on a Monday with the free agent frenzy. Jonathan Allen is allegedly visiting the Vikings today. The defensive lineman, defensive interior lineman for the Washington Commanders, who I think they tried to trade him, but they couldn't do that. They weren't successful with that. He was going to make almost $16 million this upcoming year, and they didn't want to spend that kind of money. He's 30. I think he's still viewed as a viable, big-time viable interior lineman. We know the Vikings need help there. Does this organization, with the current iteration, current ownership and general manager and coach, did they do the cliche like the previous one did, which was we don't want to let any, we got somebody, we don't want to let them leave the building without signing them? Does that mean it's likely we're going to get Jonathan Allen, or is the competition going to be fierce enough for him that it's unlikely we would get something done today?
Well, I don't know if they're like the belief of he can't leave the building. I don't know that is as much of a dogmatic belief as perhaps it was in the previous regime, but I do think there's interest. I think the fact that his representation is based in Minneapolis certainly helps. I think that adds a little bit of familiarity, both between the Vikings and his representation and just people that can kind of speak to him about what it's like. He's been here before. He's seen some of those things and would have a lot of fellow teammates from that agency on this team. I think CJ Ham, Blake Cashman. So there's a little bit of collegiality there, I think, that may help the Vikings if it's something they want to get done. I think it's an intriguing option because they certainly need help at defensive tackle, especially a guy that can bring some pass rush. It's a good defensive tackle draft. So they could go that way if they wanted to, but when you have 4 picks, you can't solve every single need in the draft. And I think if they were able to get a guy that is somebody that I think fits culture-wise, he's been somebody that his leadership has been praised, his professional approach I think has been praised in the past. So it would probably be expensive. I mean, I think it's probably going to be one of those things where he'll get 8 figures, and I don't know how long of a deal you're doing in that regard, but I think they'll be in the mix for him. I think there's a decent chance it gets done. Whether it's today or whether it's a different day, we'll see. But I think they're certainly taking a fairly strong look at him and where he might fit in the mix.
All right, I've got a little bit of, if I were a Vikings fan, I would actually have a little bit of envy. Speaking of on the offensive line, what the Bears have done, they have utterly remade the interior part of their line. 2 trades. And one, I think they got the best center allegedly on the market as a free agent. So we got to make at least one interior line move during free agency, don't we? Or are we already picked over? Is there anybody left?
No, I don't think it's picked over. I mean, Will Fry's the guy from the Colts that we had done kind of everybody play GM and say who you think they should sign. He is still out there, and I think he would make a lot of sense for them. I think they are going to make a move. It's not done yet. I mean, there's been a lot of activity at that position and an expensive activity at that position. The deal that I think Aaron Banks got from the Packers was awfully spendy. We'll have to see what the guarantees look like. But that is a position that is commanding some serious money. I think they intend to be players there, and I think they know that it's going to cost quite a bit to do it. So I think that's a priority. They've talked about that, and I think even conversations behind the scenes, you get the sense they want to do something at that position. It's going to be expensive, but I think they will be players there yet. It's not something that is I don't think that ship has sailed at this point. I think they'll still make a move because they know they have to, especially if it's going to be a young quarterback. You want that front to be as secure as it can be in front of him.
763 guy writes, Cousins to Minnesota has a better chance of happening than Rodgers. Kwesi is too cheap for that. If no one wants Cousins for a multi-year deal, then Minnesota is a perfect place to recharge his value. Some people have said this out loud on the basis of the belief that wherever he would go next wouldn't have to pay him much at all. That would basically be almost all on Atlanta. Is Cousins coming back here any more or less preposterous than the notion of Aaron Rodgers coming here?
Well, I threw this out with a lot of the metrics that you just laid out, I think a month or two ago on Twitter, and I got destroyed for it, which that doesn't mean it's less preposterous or whatever, but it's if you wanted to see it happen, I don't know if anybody is rooting for this, but the metrics that would make it possible are that you could, if the Falcons cut him, you can basically sign him for a league minimum deal because he's getting his money either way. And you're not really wanting to do the Falcons a ton of favors because you don't want to take money off of their plate. Basically, he'd have to be paid what he was supposed to get, and every dime the Vikings pay him gets credited back to the Falcons. So the Vikings or whoever it would be would say, we're not helping you out. You got stuck with this bill. You're fine. You can deal with it. So basically, you do what the Steelers did with Russell Wilson last year, where you sign him for a league minimum. Effectively, you have him almost for free, and he already knows your system. He'd come in and be able to kind of be up to speed fairly quickly. The question I would have is, does he want to come back to the team that once gave him a fully guaranteed contract to basically be the backup,
right?
Especially when a year ago, the possibility of the Vikings drafting somebody and how upfront they were with him about that was part of what made him leave and say, I'm going to go somewhere else. I have my questions about how that would work and just what that would be like as a fit in that room. But from the perspective of he knows the system and he'd be cheap, certainly he has that going for him. You also have to ask the questions of how healthy is he? How much does he have left? I think all of those things would be part of it. But purely on the familiarity, it still has a strong relationship with Kevin O'Connell, and the cost of it, I think they'd look at it. I again have a lot of questions about the cultural fit, but purely dollars and cents and purely X's and O's, I think it would at least be worth a kick of the tires, so to speak.
Thanks for the extra time today. I know you're a very busy man today, and we'll chat on Friday, if not sooner.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
That is Ben Goessling, brought to you by our good friends at Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. His regular bit is on Fridays, but for obvious reasons, we figured it made sense to include him in the mix today. Louis is going to be in studio with us. He's already here, and will be in studio with us in the 4 o'clock hour starting about 4:02. Johnny Athletic will join, I assume, by telephone. That is scheduled for 5:30 this evening. Some interesting texts have come in to sort of follow up our conversation with Ben Goessling. So we'll probably stay with the free agency frenzy and whether Vikings fans, at least so far, are suffering from a little bit of Friday FOMO on a Monday, and then mix and match some other things as well when we return. Lou Nanny in studio at the top of the 4, and Johnny Athletic will join to talk about the suddenly surging, red-hot Minnesota Timberwolves, who got another victory that you could have heard right here on the flagship. We had both teams, wild matinee game on the Fan, and that didn't go so well. And then the Wolves taking out the Wembanyama-less San Antonio Spurs. Davey, was that 5 in a row or 6?
5.
5 in a row for Mike Yo. Can't catch Golden State, man. Golden State, they're keeping pace with us. They keep winning as well. So I think actually we're percentage points behind them.
We are.
So we're in effect, I think, the same number of games over 500, but they have one fewer loss. I think basically it's a 2 games in hand thing is what it is. So showdown game in Denver Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
The Wolves in Denver to take on the Nuggets on Wednesday. Denver just went into Okie City and got destroyed after a couple days after your guy Joker made history, becoming the first 30-20-20 player in National Basketball Association history. One of the things we're going to need to talk about with John Athletic at 5:30 is whether offenses have become this good or whether we are in kind of a live ball era of basketball in which people are just having too much fun scoring, and so they're guarding selectively. But we got to look at the scores. There are lots of games.
Yeah.
In the 130s, 125s, 145. We're seeing a lot of that. So we'll see what Johnny thinks about it. The Wolves might have had their best offensive night of the season last night, and much to the chagrin of the Rudy Gobert haters.
How about that?
Him being not only back with the team, but inserted into the starting lineup was not a drag on our offense. He fit right in. What do you have, 16 points?
Yeah.
And
who threw him a couple of nice passes?
Julius.
Say it.
Starting to figure it out.
Couple of beautiful lobs.
I think Randall, while he was out, had a come to Jesus meeting with himself.
Seems like it.
And we'll get to a couple quotes there, too, regarding some things that Randall has had to say.
One thing on the Joker triple-double.
Yes.
You mentioned 30, 20, and 20.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is right. I'm going with it. And I don't know if you saw this stat. He got the triple-double like some point in the third quarter, like 18, 10, and 10, and then had another triple-double on top of it.
He's done that a couple times.
Yeah.
He's a couple times had a triple-double for each half separately. Like if you just
crazy.
if he didn't play other than that half, it is crazy. Yeah,
that's what people, to your point about the offenses being crazy, I know rebounding's part of triple-double, so it's not just about offense, but the triple-double used to be a big deal, like back in the day, like growing up.
Very much so.
I'm sure it was in your time, too.
Yeah.
I know Oscar Robertson averaged one for a year in the NBA. That's something that Corey Cove brought up with him at the Final Four one year. But it didn't happen like every night. It seems like every night now in the association, somebody's flirting with it or somebody's doing it.
Yes. And I think Joker is averaging a triple-double this year again, as well. But you're right. There's a lot there seems to be a lot more
triple-double inflation.
A lot of it going on, although in his case it's hard to denigrate it because he's been doing it when it wasn't quite as fashionable, and now he's doing it even more often than he did before. I was trying to quickly I didn't intend to go too far down this road, but might as well look at it right now. Have you checked out Joker's overall stats for the season?
I have
game averages.
I assume they're pretty good.
Well, let's take a look at them. He's averaging 28.8 points a game, which is by 2.2 points more than. No, I shouldn't say that. By 1.7 points more than he's ever averaged before. He's shooting from the field overall 57.4%.
That's pretty good.
His 3-point shooting percentage is 43%. And by the way,
good.
That's his best. He's never shot for a whole season in the 40s before.
Right.
Last year he shot 36, 38, 33, 38. So he's been absurd there. He's averaging, he's shooting 80.9% from the free throw line, averaging 12.9 rebounds and 10.5 assists. Not to mention 1.8 steals a game. And he only averages 2.2 fouls a game. Now, he's not a great one-on-one defender, but rebounding is part of defending, and he's a very good rebounder. But those numbers, then they do what they call like his real shooting percentage.
Right.
They call it the E percentage, whatever that is, the effective shooting percentage. Yep. That, I think, is like it's like 68%. I mean, that is like Game Boy stuff. What do they call it today? It wouldn't be Game Boy. What's just
2K.
online? Yeah, 2K. I mean,
2K numbers.
That's just absurd. He's been that absurd. I still don't know if Denver's good enough to make a run because of what else he has around them. But this will be the first Wolves game in Denver since Game 7, where you were.
Is that right?
That's what I read today. Yes, this will be the first time
I guess
we've been
we
back
do
in
go
Denver.
there twice here in the next handful of games. And no Karl Anthony Towns to guard him.
And no, that's going to be one of the interesting questions. Who gets that assignment?
I think Rudy got it the first time they played here.
They did.
If I remember right. He got most of it.
We won that game, didn't we?
I think we did.
I thought we won it.
It was on an afternoon. It was a Sunday afternoon.
612 guy. I'm an artist. If I could spend a year learning under an aging Rembrandt who was at 75%, I would. Any artist would. Let JJ learn under Rembrandt Rogers for an hour. I love how hard people are working this.
Yeah, I'm worried about what JJ might learn from Aaron Rodgers. Well, that's what I worry about.
Yeah.
Can I filter some of the A-Rod stuff?
It could...
be really good at quarterback, but don't think everything revolves around you all the time.
Yeah.
Even if you're the QB.
You're not tantalized by it, are you? It's not going to happen. I think it's moot now because the opening for to me, Pittsburgh makes the most sense because I would think he thinks he's got a chance to make the playoffs in Pittsburgh.
Right.
What's the point of going to the Giants? In all seriousness, other than he's got no other alternative and doesn't want to retire, and the money is massively bigger. But even at this point, you're A-Rod. In all seriousness, don't you want with your ego the best chance to on your way out the door?
I would think so.
To at least get to the postseason.
I would think so.
Isn't that Pittsburgh more than the New York Giants?
So much so that I was a little surprised And maybe they did have a bidding war, but I thought Pittsburgh made sense for Darnold once that whole thing opened up.
You could make that
there was a
argument.
lot of that chatter earlier
I'm glad
this
you brought
morning as
Darnold
well.
up. Again, here's another thing. I didn't run this by Ben. Here's what's confusing to me about him going to Seattle. The money is, tantalizing. I get that. But doesn't it look like Seattle's like stripping it down? They cut one of their receivers. They just traded away
Metcalf.
Yep. They were, I think 10-7 last year. So they were in the mix. They're not starting over. But if you're Darnold, I mean, how do you feel about the fact that they traded away, what might well be your best weapon? And are you back to taking the money with no assurances at all that it's going to go well on the basis of the team you're going to that seems to be stripping it down?
Well, the follow-up question would be, what were the other offers that were going to be out there? What was the money going to be like here?
Yes.
What was the money going to be like in Pittsburgh? What was the money going to be like in New York, where he probably didn't want to go back to? Jets or Giants. I'm guessing he probably didn't want to go back there. I'm guessing he believes in the coach. He's worked with one of the Kubiaks that's there, right? Clint Kubiak is their offensive coordinator. He was with them in San Francisco.
Correct.
One of many Kubiaks proliferating through the National Football League.
There's a bunch of them.
As we know. So I'm guessing that's what the money's for. Maybe he doesn't feel great about it, but he feels good enough about it, and $58 million guaranteed is a pretty solid way to help yourself feel good, depending on what else was out there for him.
I'm not going to lie to you. I lost my eyes in this quote, and we talked about this even before this weekend. The possibility of giving Julius Randle a second chance. Those of us who said, not going to work. We understand why you did what you did, but it ain't working, and it's not going to work, and let's not pretend it's going to work. He's not long to be with this team. They're going to have to figure out another plan. Julius Randle, this was after last night in which, for the third straight game, he flirted with a triple-double.
9+ assists.
Mainly having to do with the assists. Here's Randle on his approach since coming back. It's all about winning. Whatever this team needs, if this is the version, I'm assuming he's saying, of me, that this team needs, then I want to do that every single night to help us get as many wins as possible, make the biggest run we can make. I'm really not worried about scoring the ball. I know I can score the ball. I've had multiple years of scoring the ball at a high level. That's not really what I'm worried about now. As far as the energy on our team and how we're playing and the cohesiveness and togetherness, we're showing out there that this is the best it's felt all year. I just want to continue to build on that. However I can help, I want to do that.
Believe.
I mean, how do you not swoon over that?
It's
especially if he
everything you can
means
ask
it,
for.
because it's everything.
The follow-up's the important part, like you said.
Well, exactly.
Especially if he means it.
And playing better teams again, because we're in the mode. You can't be mad at us for beating up on bad teams, because that's what we've asked them to do. That said, better tests about whether there's something fundamental going on here, something seminal taking place. You have to prove that against better teams as well. But I said it a month ago. That's the I was about to say Johnny Randle. That's very different. That's the Julius Randle I thought had the best chance to succeed for this team the way it was constructed, especially one can say now, especially when Mike Conley's not on the floor. Point forward. And you're seeing it on almost every touch. He's got the ball. He might play with it a little, but then it's gone. He's driving and kicking as if he's a point guard. He is doing that constantly. And the scoring will come. He'll get enough points, but what he is doing is far more effective, and it opens the door, I think, to the idea that, well, maybe he can be a better fit. Maybe he's even thinking about the future and saying, I like being here.
He wants another contract eventually.
And he wants another contract, so, okay, I'll play the good soldier. But if he means it, it gives him a chance to be viable for this team and be effective. And you've just seen it. And now, what is it? Here's how it builds. Other players move better.
Yes.
Because they start going, well, if I move to an open spot, he's getting it to me. He's not thinking about, well, I got to turn backwards and I want to break. I want to back somebody down to score. He's finally figuring it out that the best thing he can do is he'll always be able to score, but that's not how he helps this team the most. That's not how he enhances his value here. That's not how he gives this team the best chance maybe to perish the thought, make a run.
The nice thing is it's been about a week of that happening, too, because that did happen right out of the gate. We talked about it after the Phoenix game, and everything looks easy against Phoenix right now. So that's the tough part, is the ball was flowing, guys were moving, shots were falling, they were defending, the energy was great. But it's continued since then. Just his pace looks so much different. The team's pace looks so much different.
There's no question.
Dante DiVincenzo's a big part of that, too, because
100%. He's
completely active.
Yes.
He was like that before he got hurt. And remember, at the beginning of the season, every time he shot it, it looked like he had no feel that it was going in. It just never,
correct.
He never felt confident. Now he's like Caitlin Clark. He's just chucking it up from all over the place. And I always feel like it's going in with Dante right now. And that's carrying over defensively.
There's no question.
Everybody's moving. It does. And again, the teams they're playing, they're not exactly the Pistons of the Larry Brown era defensively. So we understand all that. But you do have to start somewhere and see it sustained for a little while so that they understand this is the best version of us. And let's try to keep this thing going. But Randall has been spectacular.
He has been absolutely outstanding. In a very specific, as I said, important way that has very little to do with putting the ball in the basket. He's putting the ball in the basket for other people. And again, he's a good passer. He sees the floor well. And he's finally figured out, and maybe that the injury was a blessing, because it definitely feels like he had some kind of come to Jesus meeting with himself or somebody else that said, all right, I can keep, I'm Julius Randle, I've been a big time all-star scorer.
Finchie loves me.
And Finchie loves me. I can keep doing what I'm doing, but in fact, this is the better way to make the team 100% more effective. Where are we here? Already ordering me and Brett Blakemore a Rodgers jersey. Do you and Guardsy want one also? You can have Aaron Rodgers as your new weekly guest, and he can give you words of wisdom like the Saturday Night Live skit where they did readings by Jack Handy. The reason the Vikings are being cheap at free agency is they need the money for the Silver Fox Part 2.
Oh, wow.
Rodgers will be a Vike next year. Only question left is where they will erect his statue. And then he says, I'm kind of kidding. Or am I? That's Saul and Blaine. How do you not root for that story? Even if, like I said, it would be the
kind of talked me into it.
Most self-destructive move the club has made since the Herschel Walker deal. Because it's madness. But I mean, how do you not root for it as a story? We were talking about this yesterday. The Vikings are easily the number one team in this town, right? In terms of popularity for this station,
they are.
It's not even close.
Yep.
Can you imagine?
That's true.
What it would be like starting the season with him as the guy. Now, again, if he implodes, it could go south pretty quickly, and then then it's not sexy, it's not cool. It's like, oh my God, what have we done? But even that within itself is a story. Whether it ends up being a train wreck, which it could, within a week, Rodgers making some snide vaccine comment to get everybody going, just to get
bringing RFK Jr. as a training camp guest.
That's his guest.
Yeah, having him walk on the sidelines at Egan.
Him, throwing 5 touchdown passes in his first game here. And people realizing, my God, it was a mess last year in New York, but this guy's got something left. It would be, even by, I think,
all right, bring
Brett
him on.
Favre standards, it would be massive.
Yeah, because Favre was just barely in the social media era. I think it had just started, Twitter, back in 2009. So imagine it then. Yeah, bring him up to the perch, have him day one, talking about how much he loves KOC. KOC talking about how much he loves coaching him. All right, sign me up. Bring on A-Rod.
You guys hated on Favre as well until you started winning. Not on this show.
No, not at that point.
This show, I celebrated it the minute. I mocked people for Patel. It's too hard. I can't do that. I've been rooting against him all these years. How do I root for him now?
We had Childress out at Maynard's.
The answer.
We had Childress out at Maynard's.
We did?
Basically that summer.
Oh, that's right.
To talk about the possibilities of it all.
You're
I think he was a free agent at that point. I think it was after... Yeah, because this was my first year on the show. It was 2009, and that was the year he ended up coming. No, we had Chili at Maynard's in July talking about it.
Forgot about that. You're right, Chili. Oh, those were the days. Those were the days. There's no question. All right, been a long time since Luigi's been in studio, but he has been in the building basically, I think, since 2. Mainly bothering Chad Abbott. He is back from his road trip with the Minnesota Wild. We'll talk Wild with him. We'll talk Wild trades with him. We'll talk about the state high school hockey tourney that he was not a part of for the first time in over a half a century. And who knows, maybe we'll even talk Vikings free agency with Louie. He's coming up in studio, and then Johnny Athletic will join at about 5:30.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Optimize your nutrition with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart and Protein Plus. Factor's keto meals can help you lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks. Get started at factormeals.com/factor50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Weight loss with Factor Keto based on a randomized controlled clinical trial. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise.